a great, great friend of mine, Ezra Levant. He is the Rebel News founder up in Canada, which is a lot like the Blaze News in some ways. And he has been outspoken, and his team is outspoken, and he's an attorney, so he never takes anything sitting down. And the Canadian government have been after these guys for a long time. Well, he is now having to fight the censorship bill up in Canada, and it looks like he may be facing prison time because of hate speech. Ezra is with us now. Hello, Ezra.
Hi, Glenn. Thanks for having me. I appreciate your very kind words. Like you, I rely on the strength of our viewers because we are an independent group of citizen journalists, and we're fighting against an establishment. A crazy thing happened to me just a couple days ago. We tell our stories through video, but also podcasts and written work. But we also have, we love billboard trucks. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It's like a digital, it's like a Jumbotron truck. So Toronto, Canada, where I live, is the site of a pro-Hamas encampment. There's screaming, mask-wearing thugs marching through the city every week, not just in the downtown, but besetting synagogues and residential areas. There was a Jewish school that was shot up a few weeks ago. Like it's a crime wave. It's an anti-Semitic crime wave. We put some of the images of the crime wave on our billboard truck. It was actually an ad by a local community group called Canadians Opposed to the Occupation of Our Streets and Campuses. So we drove this Jumbotron truck around the city, showing some of the scenes of Hamas thugs threatening to kill people, blocking the downtown streets, having a mass prayer, gridlocking the city. So we're just showing scenes from the crime wave. And the police chief made an announcement on Twitter that he was investigating us for a hate crime, not investigating the people doing the crimes that we put in the video, but the fact that we showed those things. We were conducting the hate crime, and he announced his investigation in advance, declaring it an Islamophobic hate crime, and then starting the investigation. And if we're convicted, God forbid, under this provision of the Canadian Criminal Code, it's a 2-year prison sentence. So we're not talking about a Human Rights Commission slap on the wrist or a fine or anything. The chief of police in Canada's largest city has publicly announced that what we did with that truck is a hate crime. Then he announced the investigation. Well, gee whiz, I wonder what those police are going to find. And it's prison time, God forbid, if they succeed. Well, you know what, Glenn? Not if I have anything to say about it. So the very next day, I got in the Jumbotron truck, and I drove it, and I parked it right outside the headquarters of the police chief, right outside. And I walked into the main police station in Toronto, and I said, I'm here to see the chief. I hear he's looking for me. Can you have him come down, and he can either talk to me about where he gets off trying to censor our journalism, or he can arrest me, his choice. And I stood there in the reception of the main police headquarters of Toronto for an hour, and he wouldn't come down, and he wouldn't send anyone else down. So I eventually left, and we've been driving the truck with those same images for a few days now, and I don't know what's going to happen next. I went to his place of work, and he wasn't there. Maybe he's going to show up at my office. Maybe he's going to show up at my house. I don't know. They won't talk to me. They're not communicating with me, even though they've announced they're investigating me. We have lawyered up. My lawyers are confident that what we've done is still lawful in Canada, even though we're sliding towards censorship. But this is a risk for hate speech, Glenn. Hate speech is in the eye of the beholder. So I think there's a hate crime wave in Canada, anti-Semitic hate. But by merely showing that and describing that, the government is investigating me for hate speech. Beware of people who want to prosecute hate speech. They'll only go after enemies of the state.
By the way, if you would like to help Ezra and his team, you can just go to savethetruck.com. You'll see the story and ways for you to help. Savethetruck.com. Ezra, can I ask you, because you grew up in Canada, I think it was was it your grandfather that came to Canada in the early 1900s?
Yeah, my great-grandfather came to a western province called Alberta before it was even an official part of Canada. So I feel very Canadian. I am Jewish also, which I suppose makes me extra alert to Hamas, but it's the Canadianness in me that says this hateful crime wave is so un-Canadian, and I feel like a lot of Canadians are blown away by what they see on the streets, and all the establishment people we used to rely on, all the authorities, the police are turning a blind eye, and I saw that happen in Los Angeles recently. Just police standing by while a kind of pogrom happens. It's happening across
it's
North
happening.
America.
It's happened a lot in France here just the last few days. How does it feel to be, in a synagogue or to be Jewish in Canada right now, in Toronto, with this going on?
Toronto has a large Jewish community, one of the largest in North America, 200,000 people. And until recently, it was so comfortable and so accepting and so wonderful. And Toronto has had a Jewish mayor. The leaders of industry are Jewish, and there was nothing. You never had to be shy or embarrassed or scared. People would walk. Jewish children would walk on the street to school. Now they get attacked. Now they get attacked in classes. Gunmen shooting at schools. It's shock. Part of it is shock that this is happening. But the second shock is that all the people and all the institutions that we thought would be there for us just aren't. Like the University of Toronto, the largest university in Canada, has had a Columbia-style encampment, and no one's stopping it. McGill, the largest English university in the province of Quebec, the court wouldn't order it shut down. The police refused to remove it. The university is begging anyone to remove this thuggish encampment. And the police, the courts, no one. And people are saying, what, where, what, how? I think there's an astonishment. It's like everyone is stunned. And I don't know. I don't think, and I mean, like I say, I'm a Jew, but I don't think even non-Jewish Canadians can recognize the response. For decades, we've been told about anti-bullying and anti-racism, and no one on the left meant it. They obviously didn't mean it. They're putting. I just don't understand how they can. There's swastikas flying on the streets. There was mobs of Islamic extremists wearing masks, walking through residential neighborhoods of Jews, looking for Jews, shrieking at them, screaming at them, besetting a synagogue, an 8-hour mob outside a synagogue, shouting, screaming at, how's that even related to Gaza? They're just Jew hunting here, and I'm afraid.
Isn't it amazing how this is what the government of Canada tried to accuse the truckers of being, and they weren't. And now here they are on the streets, and they won't do anything.
That's a perfect analogy. The truckers were completely peaceful. The only thing they did was maybe some parking infractions. There was not a single act of crime committed by the truckers. They were flying Canadian flags, may I remind you. And Trudeau brought in a form of martial law. He brought out riot horses to stomp on them. He jailed the leaders. He froze the bank accounts of hundreds of Canadians who had not been accused of any crime. That was Trudeau's response to citizens who were peacefully protesting forced vaccine mandates. Here you have many non-citizens. Like I saw a video of someone from Pakistan the other day with a thick accent. I don't know if he's a citizen or a newcomer or what, standing in the middle of downtown Toronto shrieking, "Whose streets? Our streets," in a very thick Pakistani accent. And I was just thinking, who are you? You just arrived here. You're breaking the law so blatantly and not a thing. And by the way, I'm not calling for censorship. You don't need a hate speech law to go after people who are committing
crimes.
trespass, mischief, violence, vandalism, uttering death threats, assault. There's a law in Canada against besetting a church or a synagogue. The police are acting as concierges. There was a prominent Muslim leader who offered a $25,000 bounty for someone to get, who could help get me arrested. It's madness here, and I just the left. I don't think they ever meant it when they talked about anti-bullying or anti-racism. They're plenty racist when it comes to their enemies, and they've made the decision, and it's a Marxist decision, sort of a critical theory decision, that all Jews are oppressors, actually. So you can do anything to Jews, and and we saw this in Colombia, and we saw this in other places in America. What's crazy this time is that the police chief has announced he's investigating me for a crime. That's the crazy part. The police chief of the biggest city in Canada has announced he wants to prosecute me. It's crazy.
Again, if you would like to help and make sure that this is stopped, you can go to, what was it? Support the truck?
Save the truck. Save the truck dog. And it's not just a truck. I mean, the truck is a symbol. It's a peaceful ad. But, the reason we bought the truck is because we couldn't get anyone to rent. Well, no, we rent these trucks. But the truck companies who love us and deal with us 100 times, they said, we're afraid of running messages that criticize Hamas, not because we like Hamas.
Right.
We're just worried our trucks will be attacked. Our drivers will be violently attacked. We're afraid we have to say no to any criticism of Hamas because we no longer think our trucks are safe. So we bought our own truck. And now the fear is that the police will be the enforcers. Yeah. I just don't recognize this. For 50-plus years, I've lived in one of the freest countries in the world, and it's astonishing what's happening, and I appreciate you shining a light on it. Well, Canada is in jeopardy.
Yes, I know. So is America. Ezra, thank you so much for sharing this. Let me read to you what the chief of police wrote. This is on X. Let me be clear. All incidents of hate are serious. Everyone deserves to feel safe in our great city. The service is investigating this incident. Anyone with information, contact the Toronto police or call this number to remain anonymous. Hateful behavior should have no place in Toronto. What he was retweeting was, we recognize the community's concern about a truck displaying Islamophobic messaging in Toronto. The TIPS hate crime unit is investigating. We recognize the concern of the community about a truck displaying. We're investigating. Call this number. If you have any information or footage, please contact your local division of Crime Stoppers, and they give the number of tips out. That's Canada today.